So regular refined sugar, you consume 4 more ounces of that in one setting, and within 2.5 hours, your calcium-phosphorus ratios are going to decline and go off. And the body then, for that several hour window, it's like, I think about 8 hours like it is, body's going to steal from your teeth and your jawbone and your bone structure the calcium and phosphorus that it needs to bring balance back.
Welcome back to Ultra Life. Today, I'm Josh Bellew. I'm hanging out with one of my friends for a number of years now, Stephen Heuer. Although we've never met in person, today we actually know what we look like. Synergisticnutrition.com. You got to go on this guy's website. He is an innovator. He thinks outside the box. His education has not only been self-taught, but he has embraced a particular school out in Arizona over the years with a particular doctor that is definitely stuff that is really not taught a lot today, but I think is foundational for learning what's going on with your health at the root level and changing that. You know, we talked a little bit about gut pH in the first part of this. We really made a huge distinction between these protein-bound forms of calcium that you get off the shelf thinking this is really going to help me with osteoporosis and bone density, and it may actually be taking you further or closer to the cliff that you may be falling off of and end up not only with heart trouble, circulatory problems, artery problems in life. There's ways to get around this. There's ways to navigate this. This section we're going to get into, and by the way, so Stephen introduced an idea called ionic calcium. If you do a consult with him, you reach out to him, you get on his website, you'll figure out how to put yourself in the appropriate category to take the supplements that he would recommend. Getbonesofsteel.com is a really cool way you could find out more about what we're talking about here on this podcast. Listen, Stephen, welcome back for episode 2.
Thank you.
What would you say are lifestyle factors for bone health before we would even get into some of the basic things like exposure to sunlight, grounding, vitamin D, forms of that, and cofactors for that? Do things like boron come into play in this world as well? Certain trace minerals that are cofactors in this space. But before we do that, what is kind of the day in the life of an individual that's trying to move toward a healthy lifestyle as it relates to bone density and osteoporosis prevention? What are Stephen's top 3 things that he'd say, hey, anybody can do this?
I'm going to answer that by saying what's the known causes of bone loss so that people
Okay.
understand how this happens. So one of them is being older and not producing enough ionic calcium. And so now you've got the parathyroid turned on and you're dissolving bone. So it's an ionic calcium deficiency, which happens when you're past age 35.
And just an age-related thing that continues to progress. Okay, thank you.
The next one is an acid pH. So the body pH is supposed to be alkaline. So your blood pH is supposed to be 7.35, 7.45, and all the body's mechanisms are geared to sacrifice other tissues to keep the pH neutral if you're not alkalinizing the body enough through supplementation or through green vegetable juices or something that aggressively alkalinizes. And the body produces more acid in a day than alkali naturally through metabolism, but it's supposed to be maintained. Part of the deterioration of the process of the body is a progressive more acidification because people are not addressing this. And so the body, when it's acidic, the blood is threatened. So it says, I'm going to steal calcium out of the bones to neutralize this acid, and I'm going to steal other protein structures. You're going to steal protein out of the cartilage of the joints. You're going to steal protein out of other tissues because some of those amino acids neutralize acids. So that's 2. Number 3 is antibiotics. Anybody that's used antibiotics for a length of time and never fixed their gut microbiome has created an infection in their GI tract from fungal overgrowth and pathogenic bacteria overgrowth that causes excess acids to be leaked into the bloodstream through the GI tract that overwhelms the body's pH regulation, so the body dissolves bone to compensate. The 4th is consuming 4 more ounces of sugar in one setting. So regular refined sugar, you consume 4 more ounces of that in one setting, and within 2.5 hours, your calcium-phosphorus ratios are going to decline and go off, and the body then, for that several hour window, it's like, I think about 8 hours like it is, body's going to steal from your teeth and your jawbone and your bone structure the calcium and phosphorus that it needs to bring balance back.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All of you sugarholics and sugar fiends out there, at best, you need to be very, very judicious about limiting, and you heard Stephen even mention a magic number. Did you say 4 ounces?
Yep, 4 ounces. So
Mm,
basically, you're supposed to have this ratio of calcium to phosphorus of 8.75 to 3.5 milligrams for 100 cc's of blood. And when you consume the chocolate, whatever, this is all studied by Melvin Page. He did 40,000 blood tests on all these people, gave them the chocolate. They then tested their blood every half hour. And after 2.5 hours, basically this ratio became off, and it actually was 32 hours of time where the body was demineralizing the teeth and the jawbone structure and the skeletal structure to deal with the deficiency created by this sugar consumption. And of course, white sugar is the worst, but fruit sugar can be part of this if you're doing too much, like fruit juice. I don't think honey's probably a big issue because it's if you get good honey unheated, there's a lot of other medicinal properties to it.
right,
And I've observed people with a vegan diet are when I used to do dark field microscopy, it was consistent that the vegans that came to me, they had gum recession and tooth decay
right.
and had to have all this dental work because they weren't getting the calcium and phosphorus from the diet, particularly the phosphorus from the meats. And you can't get enough calcium and phosphorus from vegetarian sources because these minerals are bound to cellulose in that plant material. And the human digestive tract doesn't produce cellulase, the enzyme necessary to digest cellulose. So you get very little actual nutrient absorption. You would have to do vegetable juices to concentrate these minerals to get any degree of mineral balancing that you need on a vegetarian diet.
Wow.
And then the other one is when you have a hidden infection or cancer. So in the body, like when I had my mercury poisoning, took years to figure this out. I had a coated tongue. At one point, I had fungus growing under the hair of the hair of my armpits, like a whole sheath of white growing around each hair. I had fungus up the wazoo because mercury, and mercury was like hugely in my body. And so wherever mercury deposits, it damages the cell's metabolism, so it can't convert glucose into energy optimally. So rather than getting 32 to 36 units of ATP for a molecule of glucose, you get far less than that and a lot more lactic acid. And that lactic acid lowers your pH around the tissues. And that pH lowering is basically lowering the oxygen level because pH equals oxygen. So when your pH lower is too low, the environment is anaerobic because it's low oxygen, and the spores in the human body, Candida parapsilosis, Candida albicans, mucoracemiosis, Aspergillus niger, and others grow from their spore stage into their fungal stage. And now the fungal metabolism produces alcohol and other toxins that are going to make this acid pH continue and create cancer environment and rob your bones because the body's trying to keep the pH of the blood in this neutral range. So it
All
takes
right.
the bones.
So let's go back to number 2, which I believe was the pH factor.
Yeah.
Tell our people some practical things they can do to begin to move that pH toward what you said was 7 to 7.45?
And you
Okay.
can measure it though by reflected in your saliva. Your blood and your tissues are supposed to be 7.35, 7.45.
Now,
However, your
do those
saliva,
little test strips on a roll that I
yeah,
got at my biological dentist, is that a accurate way to do
yeah,
that?
that's an accurate way to do it. I
Okay,
carry them too.
very
They're on my website.
inexpensive. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and you wanna get them in the right range, 5.5 to 8.5. That's the window, not other windows. That's the best window of pH. When the litmus paper is gonna change color, you got that
Okay.
range you're gonna be getting. So, anyways, to
So
alkalinize the body, you want lime water, which is calcium hydroxide. It's a pH 11, and so when you add a tablespoon or 2 of that to your water, drink a little bit of that with your first and last meal of the day, that's strongly alkalinizing. And because some people are they have cancer or whatever, it's not necessarily enough. So they also take calcium hydroxide in pill form, and that's just called Cal2. It's CAL hyphen and then the Roman numeral 2. It's on my website. It's a Carrie Reams product. And those are the two most alkalinizing things you can take. And if
okay,
those,
I need to pause you again because we just happen to have, Stephen, a lot of honestly, we've had 70,000 people approach our company that are utilizing some of our products for immune support that are on a active cancer journey. So I need you to say once again, you said calcium hydroxide,
it's called lime water, Lime,
and
not the
that's
citronella.
actually readily available, but is there lime water and then lime water? Is there some good sources that one could
It's
get
only
those
one brand. Yeah,
inexpensively
there's only
from,
one
right?
brand. It's called Lime Water, and it's on my
Perfect,
website. So it's a Carrie
perfect.
Reams product, and they use sulfur water. The sulfur makes soluble the calcium hydroxide so you can absorb it. If it's not in sulfur water, it's going to contribute to depositing in your tissues.
Oh, wow, I've just been recently learning about the sulfated connection within water and what that does for absorption. So that's really cool you brought that up. And you said 1 teaspoon in the morning in
One
water?
it's actually 1 to 2 tablespoons twice a day, and you have
1?
to
Okay,
determine the dosage based upon your morning saliva pH. So your morning
okay.
saliva pH, when you get up between 5 and 7 AM before you eat, drink, or brush your teeth, and provided the previous night you don't have food on your in your mouth and on your teeth, you've water picked your teeth, you've flossed your teeth, you've cleaned your teeth thoroughly, there's no food particles on your teeth, and then the next morning, you can milk your saliva between 5 and 7 AM, spit on pH paper, and then that's going to give you an accurate reflection of your body pH. Any other time of the day after you've eaten, it's not accurate because your mouth changes your pH after you eat
Exactly.
something. So that's the most accurate time window to reflect what's going on in your body. And so that should be 7.5 based on a book called The Calcium Factor by Bob Barefoot and Carl Reich. Carl Reich was, basically a medical doctor that had a nutritional practice that basically showed that in his 20-year nutritional medical practice, he saw that people's pHs was controlling their health. And if you brought their saliva pH back to 7.5, their condition would either go away or improve dramatically. Anyways, that if you get your pH in the morning to 7.5 by doing 1 tablespoon of lime water twice a day, then you just stay there. But if it's still acid below 7, if it's 6.9 or lower, then you got to keep on increasing the amount till you get to probably 2 tablespoons twice a day.
Man.
And
Well,
then if you're alkaline, then the atomic calcium will work or the ionic calcium will work. If you're not alkaline, ionic calcium supplementation will be used for pH acid neutralization to raise pH to a more alkaline state, and it won't go towards bone.
wow, I'm just so glad we rewound the tape and went back over that because so many people are missing this true pH factor thing as it relates to absorption of calcium, other minerals, and putting the body into a place where it's not progressing into this fungal overgrowth cycle that we know plagues everybody practically in the Western world. Now, Stephen, let's get practical for a second about sunlight and then also supplementation with vitamin D and some of the different things out there. How does this factor into a practical and simple way somebody can? I mean, I'm learning so much about sunlight right now that I don't think in 20 lifetimes any of us are going to figure out what's really going on in our body as we expose ourselves to natural sunlight because it seems to me it's in the trillions of different triggering responses that are happening in the body when we expose ourselves to sunlight. But talk a little bit about sunlight, fresh air, maybe grounding, and then vitamin D and how that works in Stephen's world.
Well, sunlight is kind of hard to access in the winter, but when you can access it, you're going to get electron donation. You're going to get photons, and those photons are going to actually help your mitochondria to do the electron transport chain and produce energy.
Exactly.
And the falling down of your mitochondria to not produce energy optimally and go into an anaerobic phase makes tumor cells. So sunlight's anti-cancer. And then the vitamin D production, of course, that vitamin D makes antimicrobial peptides, so it's conducive to killing the pathogens that your body might be exposed to or dealing with. And it also makes vitamin D also causes your GI tract to produce calcium binding proteins in the small intestine, so you absorb calcium more readily into the gut, into the bloodstream. However, that vitamin D doesn't cause bone formation. In fact, vitamin D causes bone dissolution. So vitamin A and vitamin D you'll find are paired in nature, like they're in the fat of
Mhm.
animal tissues, they're in the egg yolks together, they're in cod liver oil together. And if the animal was fed on grass and it's butter, it's going to have K2 in it. And
Yeah.
so in a healthy human GI tract, you're going to convert some vitamin K1 in the greens you eat into K2, and the K2 is going to be minoquinone 4, not minoquinone 7. Minoquinone 7 does not work as readily in the body to produce bone formation as minoquinone 4. You can do that. You can research this. I've got the paperwork on it where they've done studies and they found that in the placenta of a developing baby, once the baby's born, the placenta, if you analyze it, only has minoquinone 4 in it. It doesn't allow for vitamin minoquinone 7.
Okay, and just for those of you listening who've been looking at the health food store shelf and been on Amazon and everywhere else, he's saying you're looking for MK7 or MK4, and Stephen is a strong advocate based on some very empirical data, even as it relates to babies, that MK4 is what is present, and so vitamin D, MK is what you're going for, not MK7, according to you, Stephen.
Yeah, yeah, and because people have reversed bone loss with just things like this really good emu oil. So emu oil from the ostrich bird out of Australia concentrates vitamins A, D, and K2 in its fat, and the K2 is minoquinone 4. And then when a person's taking that, some people are reverse osteoporosis just taking that and not ionic calcium. So I carry this, emu oil because it's got these three vitamins that work together, and the A and the D act to dissolve bone because you have to dissolve old bone to make new bone. Otherwise, the bones become brittle. And that's the problem with bisphosphonates because bisphosphonates kill the actual cells called the clasts. The osteoclasts dissolve old bone. And if those cells are killed, then the bones don't get reabsorbed and they remain the same old bones. And over 2 years' time, that becomes fragile and subject to fracture. So it's not the answer for people out there that, are bisphosphonates or something like that. Instead, you can do this naturally. You can do it with Walkabout Emu Oil, which is the brand that I know of in the US. It's the only one I think is in the US. And then there's also this good fat in it called carbon 15 or C15 that makes your cell membranes strong so that your brain cell membranes become stronger. So it's very conducive to brain health, cellular health. Plus, it's got all the fats for the brain. So some people have partially reversed Parkinson's just taking this emu oil. But basically child development, if a person is still in the reproductive years, so they're going to have children, taking this prior to conception during gestation, make sure that the child's jawbone develops the full width. There's no crowded teeth. There's a wider jawbone, a larger skull, bigger brain. It's all skeletal development, that particular vitamin. And so the K2 as MK4 activates the body to produce matrix GLA protein. Matrix GLA protein activates the creation of new bone. So it's very much super catalyst to synergize with ionic calcium supplementation. And I have, like on the website that you've already said, the getbonesofsteel.com, I have 3 packages and the whole educational piece that goes
Right.
into all the details so that a person can understand this intellectually and feel like it's worth their investment. And there's the first package, foundational, the second package, which is more advanced, third package, which is more advanced, that it deals with the gut microbiome and everything. And so that a person wants to heal their bones the quickest and their gums and everything. So you're actually preventing the loss of your teeth as you get older and keeping your gums healthy by doing this, because the number one cause of gum recession is osteoporosis of the jawbone.
Yeah, I love the fact that when you put things together, Stephen, you take real deep dives, you do peripheral research around things as well, and then you really try to put things together that are going to address a variety of different things surrounding that particular issue. You didn't know this about me, Stephen. Most of our listeners don't know this either. At one time, I was a minority partner in a two-person startup that got absolutely mind-blowingly huge in the United States. And guess what the core magic ingredient in our product was? It was emu oil. I was just sharing with someone the other day the miracles I used to see, not only with the topical use of emu oil, but people taking it internally that had everything from horrifying nerve damage from automobile accidents to on and on. And I don't make any money from emu oil, so I can say these things observationally. And I do happen to actually know a guy that does brilliant job of processing emu oil here in the United States. You and I can talk about that off camera because there are some other great sources, Stephen. But the thing that was really fun, the little fun trail I'll go down for a second is we were so big in this company, and it was during a time when the whole emu market had dropped. We went over to, Tasmania,
Wow.
to, New Zealand, and to Australia, and we made deals with all the farmers and bought up every single amount of emu oil that they actually had.
Wow.
So, at one point in time, Josh Bellew and friends controlled the world market on emu oil,
Wow.
like that's really a valuable thing to know. Anyway, but I love emu oil. I love it as a transdermal agent. I love it as an internal agent. I saw it do miracles for people, so I think it's so cool you brought that up because you taught me some things I didn't know about emu oil today as it relates to this whole MK4 equation, right? That's
Yep.
where it ties in?
MK4. It's nature's
Brilliant.
richest source of MK.
Yeah, and again, you also mentioned the brain equation with MUL. That's really cool.
Yep.
That's really cool. Well, listen, you're listening to Ultralife today. You're really listening to a guy named Stephen Heuer of Synergistic Nutrition. Go to synergisticnutrition.com. Guess what? You can actually talk to this guy like I am today for 20 minutes free of charge. You can tell he takes deep dives into things and he doesn't just go, oh, sure, take this pill or that pill or take this supplement or that supplement. He really is a brilliant self-taught guy. I really appreciate him. Stephen Heuer, synergisticnutrition.com. But Are you chasing this bone density osteoporosis trail? Go to getbonesofsteel.com. Who can't remember that website? This is Josh Bellew, Ultralife Today. Listen, we love the way you're helping us grow this podcast. You can find us wherever you like podcasts. If you think what we're bringing you is relevant, the greatest favor you can do for us is like, subscribe, share with other people. Other people need to hear what Stephen Heuer has to say. Now, we're going to move into a third component. You saw us start off, and I brought up progressive resistance training. I'm a huge believer in that. Stephen made a big point, and that lives in the world of Ultra Botanica here. We help individuals that are struggling with the aging process and having mobility issues. With our unique technology, we get people moving again, Stephen, so
Yep.
that they can actually walk, so that they can actually begin to do mild progressive training. That's another really cool factor. We'll talk a bit about that in episode 3. Stephen Heuer, synergisticnutrition.com. Get Bones of Steel. We will be back for another episode with Stephen Heuer.